Hey yo, so we are back with our instrument and we're kind of trying to make it, I don't know if more efficient is the right word, but we're showing the different ways that you can build it using some looping and introducing concepts. So last time we put all our UI control stuff like, I don't know, like different declarations and different, setting different control parameters into the loop. And we noticed that we have a lot of other stuff that we can probably loop, and the first thing that we will look at is exactly this kind of moving the controls. So I guess the first thing is this move control px. It's the same as I showed with the set text command. It does not refer to the UI ID. It refers to the actual name of the variable itself. So we're going to need to use something else. We're going to need to use a set control par command. It's exactly the same as the other stuff, and it's an integer command, so we know we don't need to use the str version, we just need the normal version. So we can take, for example, this, and you know what, we did the, again, it's about like how you want to set up, right? So in my loop, I did the sliders first, declaring the different control parameters, then I did the labels, but now I'm thinking, doing the movement, I will not, like, I will start here. You know, I won't do the movement for the sliders before I do the label, so I can have the movement of everything just kind of in one place. Up to you as always. So honestly, I never remember these names by heart, but let's try to find what would be the name to set the position for the sliders. So it's yeah, I thought so. So it's pos x, that's the x position, so that's this part of this command. Excuse me. So position x, and we know we're going to need position y as well. And now we have to think for a moment what we actually need in there, because it's not exactly the same as just taking directly I, right? Because now I equals 0, the next time it's going to equal 1, and it should not necessarily equal. So let's look at so first of all, the y is super simple. The y is always going to be 0, at least in our case. So maybe we don't even need the command, but let's not get funny. Let's have it in there, so maybe it changes or maybe it doesn't, whatever. So position y, always 0 in our case. Position x should go by so it starts with 0 and then by multiples of 44. Now we can just use the number 44, but let's maybe introduce another variable here, and let's call it declare, let's call it GUI spacing x. And it's going to be a constant. This is not going to change. This is something we declare and then we just use. And we're going to say that the spacing is 44 because that's the spacing basically. And now we can just do something like this. So we can do I times GUI spacing x. Now, when it's 0, when I is 0, it's going to do 0 times 44 and just be 0. Amazing, that's what we want. When I is going to be 1, it's going to do, and 1 is the decay slider, right? So 1 times 44, 44. 2 times 44, 88, and so on. So this should just work. And then we need to do the same thing for the labels, but with some different math. Let's first copy paste, and then make sure that we're targeting the labels here. And the labels, actually, it's a little bit the opposite, right? The y is always the same, and the x is what is changing. So let's do y 40. These can also be variables. I mean, again, really, like, but we need to introduce GUI spacing y. Or, no, wait, we actually don't. No, we don't. It's actually the same. It's GUI spacing x, and the y is different. Okay, cool. So we're actually good, I think. Let's try it. And the panel, of course, is different, right? It's the parent of all these things. It has nothing to do with what happens inside the loop. So let's save. No mistakes. And it still looks as it should. So it's all good on our side. So yeah, we saved a little bit more space, and all the commands are sequential here and happen at the same place at the same time, and they use some math. So if we now want to change the GUI spacing, make it like much larger, It's as simple as changing it in one place. Awesome. So that's what we want. I mean, should we change the yeah, okay, let's just leave it at that. But maybe if this is the only one where I'm changing the default value, maybe I put it here so it's clear. Again, up to you. I don't know. And then maybe, yeah, do I want to first, it's a bit semantic. It's like, what are you doing? So I guess I'll move the panel first. Like, so when I'm reading the script, okay, I move the panel here and now I'm setting the individual controls. Doesn't matter, but okay. I think I like it like this. Awesome. So now we have all this, this init callback is kind of clear to us. It's very clean. Let's look at what can we do with our callbacks themselves. So as we see in the callbacks, it's also kind of similar, right? The exact same stuff happens, but there are some differences. Again, like the control parameter is different. We can see that the amendment to the value, like it's dB on the sustain, and of course the labels here are different. But as mentioned, the commands are the same. So what if we introduced some way of having the commands just one time, right? But the actual the actual parameters would correctly come in and perform the command as needed with the right values. So this is a time maybe to introduce functions. So let's do it right now. And let's create a function. All you have to do is write function and you give it the name, and let's call it, for example, set all controls. You can call it whatever you want. And you need to end the function just like UI controls. So now we have an empty function that's called set all controls. Amazing. In that function, I guess we want to do two things, and I will show you why we're only doing the two things, but we will set the engine parameter and we will set the slider. So set all controls, let's copy paste it for a second and put it here. Now, the way you call a function is from inside, from inside our callback, we would do call set all controls. The callback comes in, starts to read the code, reaches this line, says, oh, okay, I'm calling this function, it searches, it finds that there's code for this function, it goes in, and it does what it's supposed to do. Now, this would actually work right now. So if I delete this from attack, this would work because it's going to call the function and everything inside the function pertains to the attack. So it's all good. But I cannot just simply do the same for all of them, right? I cannot just if I do it like this, then the decay slider UI control movement is going to come in. It's going to call set all controls. It's going to do as it's told, but it's going to do stuff for the attack. So we don't want that necessarily, right? Let's undo for a second. So we want one generic command that's able to change all of them. And we're going to use the looping that we used before. So for example here, we already know that get UIID slider, we have the UIID for all the sliders. So this we can just take our slider IDs. Hang on, we'll build this step by step. So there's going to be wrong stuff as we build it, and it's going to end up the right way. So first of all, let's paste it here. So we know we're going to be working with this array. We know that I is not what we need at the moment, but let's leave it at that for a second. And then we keep looking at what else do we have on this line. So this is not correct. It should not always be attack. And the millisecond is not correct. So what should we do in this case? So how about we introduce an array that has all these engine parameters in there, and then we can loop through them just the same as we loop through all the other stuff. It's as simple as that. So we're going to do declare, and we're going to do engine parameters. You can give any name that you want that makes sense to you. We know we need 4, and we know engine parameter. Let's prepare it, and we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. And now these constants in Kontakt, it may look like text, but you see it has a $sign. These actually have some numerical value behind the scenes that you never need to worry about. You worry just about the constant. So we're going to put all these in this integer array. So we have decay, we have sustain, and we have release. And you can already think ahead. We're using this attack, decay, sustain, release, these engine parameters in multiple places, right? So this array is going to help us. So now, right now we're looking at the setting the string command, but it's going to help us in the other places as well. So we have this engine parameter. So now we can just go here and say, look, when a command comes in, go and look for, do this engine part. Everything is fine, but the engine parameter, this depends on something dynamic that comes in. So now it's going to be 0. Obviously, this is wrong. We're just setting up now. And now we have also this. This is also dynamic. So yeah, we have no choice. We need another string array. I mean, we can put it before, we can put it after, I don't know. Let's call it value ups, value types, names are up to you. Value types, and we have ms, we have ms, we have db, and we have ms again. So now we also have a value types array. So let's put that in already. And we take the string from the value types and we put that in. So now what happens when it's coming in? So it's coming in, it's looking to set the control par str for an element of this array, all good. It's doing the engine parameter for the correct element of this array, and it's taking the value type from this array. But which should it take, you know? So now we have 0, 0, we have I here, all of it is incorrect. We need some way to be able to say, hey, look, which is the one that you actually need to target? So we're going to introduce one more variable. Let's introduce it right here on, I like to introduce these dynamic things kind of together. So let's do declare, the usual spelling mistake in the word declare. We have to do it as well. So we're going to declare a variable called touched. And this is going to be a completely dynamic thing that we're going to use to say which slider was touched. So now when the user touches the amp slider, we want to say, hey, look, the slider that was touched, for all the arrays, for all intents and purposes, for what you need to do, this is slider 0. So we're just going to say, look, this is slider 0, mate. And we're going to do the same. Well, let's not do for the rest. Let's do 1 and then copy paste. That will be the easiest. So touched is 0. Amazing. And now we're going to do, inside here, we're going to do touched. That's what we want. So touched, oops, and touched. That's pretty amazing. So this is probably okay. I mean, we'll know soon enough when we try to save if we have an error or not, and if this works. But let's first take care of also this. Now it's kind of easy for us, right? Because engine parameter array we set up. So it's exactly the same. We want to change this engine parameter. And and we want to say we also have this. But what happens here? We cannot just say slider ID touched, because that's the UI ID. We need the value of the slider. You're following? This is the UI ID. We're using it every time we need get UI ID. So this is no good for us. Not directly anyway. But we use the counterpart to the set control par. We talked about this before. So it's as simple as doing get control par. Here it does need a UI ID. So we're going to say this person that was touched. And we want to know what is the value. So it's control par. Easy enough. Control par value. So now it's going to come in. And now I think we're good. We'll know in a second if we have a mistake. But it's going to say, cool, slider was touched. Which slider? Okay, this guy. Boom. Callback initiated. Touched is 0. It sets touch to 0. Then it calls set all controls. Whoop. It finds the function set all controls. Starts to read it. Set engine par. Which engine parameter? Engine parameter touched. Touched is 0. We go here. Cool. 0 is engine power attack. So it's going to use engine power attack. What value do you want to put in there? So we're going to say get the value of this same touched and use that value to set the engine power. Same thing we're doing with the label. So let's save. No errors. That's good. And it's working. It's literally setting this one. So 15K, we can see that it's all good. So we can continue with this and do the exact same thing to our other callbacks. Now, the one thing I didn't put in there is I'm not putting the text in there because I want to keep the text within the callback so that everything happens with this UI timer. But what I can do is to make my life very, very, very easy. Look at what I have right now. If I copy paste this thing, I'm still copy pasting attack, and I'm still copy pasting engine power attack, and I'm still copy pasting milliseconds and all of that. I can make that much more efficient, exactly the same way. And here it's just for my copy pasting. It's not for code efficiency, but it's for copy pasting the callback multiple times. So let me show you what I mean. So I told you that for a text parameter, it's called control part text. So let's just do that, control part text. And it's not the slider, it's the label. And actually, this is not what we want, because we don't want to use the UIDs. You know, right now, we already said that touched equals 0. So we can do the exact same thing as we did here. We can do, well, I took the wrong one, that's why. Wait, we need this actually. So we need this. Here it's already all set up. But we need to say label ID. And we need to say control par label. Yeah, the rest should be fine. And here we need the same, well, no, it's control par text. And here we need to do the same. We need to use the control par str, but we're just quite simply going to do attack. Well, no, we're going to do, it's actually this, control par name, because we have it. We don't need to say attack. And I think I probably, yeah. Now the whole thing is dynamic, right? Nobody knows a thing about anything. It's just one callback. The only thing I need to change is touched, and I can copy paste this to all my callbacks. But before I do that, what if I have 200? I want to check that I don't have any bugs. So it does seem, whoa, something happened. Array control name 4 is out of range. Index 4 is invalid. Default value 4 is used. So why was that? Control par ID touched. Control par control names at I, and I is the wrong thing. I is 4 now. It was set before. That's our bug. Again, it's kind of nice that we're actually having this. Happens all the time. Yeah, you forget stuff. So touched, and now it should be all good. Now there's no problem, and it flips back correctly. So now we know. All we need to do is we copy. Well, let's get rid of the others. Well, we can, you know what, in our particular case, I see one more thing here. Because touched and callback ID locations are going to be the same, we can even make it, sometimes maybe this doesn't work, depends on your instrument and how it's set up. Here it can even be like this. So we first set touched, and then the whole thing is dynamic. And then all we need to do is copy it 4 times. Because it's 4 different callbacks. This you cannot avoid. There's another method in Kontakt which is it's called onUI controls, where you don't need to copy, but it's a completely different thing. Show it maybe in another video. For now, like this, sustain slider and release slider. And now don't forget, this is the most important part. Touch needs to change. So attack the case, sustain and release. And now it should be quite dynamic. Let's change this guy in a second. And now they should all be, you see, we already see that sustain is getting the dB. That's a good sign that it's working. And yeah, everything is as it should be. So everything just works. The advantage here is that you see the advantages, right? Like the only thing we need to change is touched. We have everything consolidated in lists, so we can kind of correlate. It all kind of makes sense. We have one single place that sets the UI the engine parameters. If we have a bug, it's a bug in one place. It's one place to fix. Yeah, so it's kind of efficient and super useful. And here we actually have a choice now. We can still do this. We can loop through it. And I think the looping through it is probably the better way. So in the persistent change, I mean, imagine you have hundreds and you're adding new ones and stuff like that. So you don't always want to go back to your persistent change callback. So what I would do here is I would reset I to 0, get my while loop in there, under 4, end while. Yeah, just setting it up, inc I, and inside, now I can do something like this. I can do touched equals I, and then I can call set all controls. So now on persistent change, it's gonna come in. You change the snapshot. It comes in. It says, cool, snapshot changed. First thing, I equals 0. Now start looping. Touched, every time you're looping, same as before, we showed how it works. It's going to equal I, so 0, 1, 2, and 3. Every time you go through the loop, you call the UI set all controls. Now I is 0, now I is 1, now I is 2, now I is 3. It's going to do all this stuff, and it's going to set the controls. So this should already work. Let's see that we have no errors. We do. We don't have an end while, don't we? While, end while, what? What's wrong, bro? Syntax error 114. Now it's gonna be, I was gonna say it's gonna be something stupid. It's not even the end while, it's that I forgot to put the word call over here. So now it's all good again, and we have our little more efficient persistence loop. If we add more controls, all we have to do is increase here. Now this is the last thing maybe in this video. Now it's 4. What if it becomes 5? If it becomes 5, we have to change 4 here. We have to change 4 here. Every place that we're kind of looping, yeah, and we're declaring all these things with the word 4, 4, 4. We need to find where the 4 is, and it's probably not the way to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go on top here where we declare some of the other constants, and we're going to do declare const, and we're going to call it num controls. So there's conventions that constants are named with capital letters. I like to name them with lower letters. Do as you please. In the end, our num controls is 4. And then we can just kind of, maybe we can do a find replace, but let's just quickly do it. Every time that we're using that 4, we're just going to use num controls instead. And if it ever changes, it's much easier for us to change. We only need to change one place. So we should be good now. Did we have another 4? See, that's exactly why, because you're like, wait a minute. But I think we're good, and now it's set up as we wanted it. Cool, I think that's it for this video, and we'll go on in the next videos showing more advanced concepts.